From news and views, issues and opportunities, we'll have in-depth conversations with decision makers to find out what they know and what they think. I'm Rico Hizon, inviting you to join the exchange because your business is our business. The world is coming to grips with COVID-19. The scientific community is rushing to find potential cure and treatments to weaken and eventually crush the virus. As research initiatives come with a hefty price tag, governments and big drug companies are willing to bet hundreds of millions of dollars. We will track the funding for research and product development and find out how close are we to ending this pandemic. Here in the country, experts are making great strides in clinical trials of herbal plants. Hospitals are also seeing promising results out of experimental drug regimens. But can ordinary Filipinos afford these new prescriptions? And countries are racing to get early access to the first oral antiviral pill against COVID-19. The vision for a post-pandemic world in our C-Suite vision. Have you ever wondered how vaccines and medicines were created? Well, everything began in research and development, which is the lifeblood of the drug industry. As we navigate our way out of this pandemic, experts are investing both time and money for these studies. Let's now have an exchange with Secretary Fortunato de la Peña from the Science and Technology Department. Secretary, thank you so much for joining us. Finding potential cures and treatments is very important to weaken and eventually win this fight against COVID-19. Is the government allocating enough money for research on medicines for COVID?
Well, our Philippine Council for Health Research and Development has a relatively small budget of around 700 million pesos a year. So this particular year, most of the budget of our Philippine Council for Health Research and Development has gone into COVID-19 research, and we have to add on to it from the R&D budget of the DOST Central Office.
And Secretary, do you have partnerships with the private sector to further your research and development?
Well, we have many partnerships with the private sector, but not exactly now on COVID-19. Maybe I can cite the partnership with the private sector in the following manner. For example, in the case of the development of our RT-PCR test kit, that was one of the first one that was approved by FDA. This has been done by a technology-based company that was put up by our own researchers, but that is already a private company now, Manila Health Tech. So that is one good example of a public-private partnership during this pandemic. Now, we have, for example, collaborators also in the other researches, but those researches on products or therapeutics are not exactly for COVID-19. For example, we have ongoing partnerships with the private sector in the case of dengue research, both in terms of kits and in terms of drugs.
Secretary, great strides are being made in clinical trials of some herbal plants. Let's start off with Lagundi. Is it effective in easing COVID-19 symptoms?
Yeah, since Lagundi is actually an approved drug remedy by our FDA, so we thought that it would be good to try it among COVID patients, since most of the symptoms of COVID patients are cough, cold, sore throat, and fever, which are actually being addressed by Lagundi. So we did the trial, but this was done on the mild cases, those that are in the quarantine centers, and our results have actually yielded some promising findings.
So very promising results from Lagundi. What about Tawa-Tawa, Secretary? Are your studies
Tawa-Tawa,
revealing encouraging
Tawa-Tawa
results?
is an approved health supplement for dengue. So that means that there is also an antiviral property. So we thought that parehong mga ano tawag dito, viral diseases can pwedeng ma-address ng tawa-tawa. So ongoing pa, I think we are more than half already of the targeted participants. The participants have come from Manila and also from Bacolod. So the one in Bacolod is the Ledesma Medical Center. And
So Secretary,
the one here is from what here meron din tayo mga pinagkukuhanan sa Metro Manila.
Secretary, what about virgin coconut oil? Can it provide symptomatic relief for COVID-19?
The virgin coconut oil, we have already shown that for the mild cases, what we call the suspects and probables, those who have symptoms who go to the quarantine centers, it worked quite well. So there was a difference of about 5 days in terms of mean recovery period. So those who took BCO while in the quarantine center in the mild cases had a mean rate of recovery days of 18 days, while those who did not take Lagundi had a mean rate of 23 days. That was significant. Also in terms of the number of days before they became negative, PCR negative, there was an advantage for those who took up BCO. But in the case of the severe and moderate, in the case of our experiment or trials at the Philippine General Hospital, the findings are wala pa. We cannot say that there is an advantage for taking BCO for the severe and moderate cases, although there is still one part of the trial that is not complete, and that is the effect of cytokines on the organs. You know? So that can, when that is completed, we might have some good results also.
Secretary, we have imported so far more than 100 million vaccines from overseas. Will Filipino scientists, through its research and development, eventually be able to develop our own vaccines?
Yes, I believe so. And I think it was only some kind of, shall we say, a neglect on the part of government that we have not continued our vaccine development activities here in the Philippines. As you know, maybe you have seen that picture, a 1939 picture where the Philippines donated vaccines to China, coming out of our facility there at Alabang, but then as time passed, it was more convenient, I think, to buy the vaccines, and so we did not continue to develop our vaccines. But if we will have this our proposed Virology and Vaccine Institute of the Philippines, we are very confident that we will be able to address the problem not only on COVID-19 but also on other viral diseases that might come. And we can also develop our own vaccines for the regular vaccination program that we have. Those that we give to our children, the flu vaccine, the pneumonia vaccine for adults, etc. There is a possibility that we can actually produce them. And we are happy that the Filipino experts abroad have volunteered to help. We now have 7 Balik scientists working with us on this area.
Thank you so much for this very interesting scientific exchange, Secretary Fortunato de la Peña. And now here's a rundown of this week's top business stories. Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Carl Chua says at least 3.6 billion pesos per week will be added to the economy should Metro Manila downgrade to Alert Level 2. He adds that around 16,000 people will be able to get their jobs back. The Philippines and South Korea conclude talks that will allow easy access of goods between the two countries. The free trade deal covers gradual elimination of tariffs on Philippine bananas, canned pineapple exports, and exports of Korean automobiles and auto parts, among others. Both sides said the agreement would boost economic recovery efforts. And the government's budget deficit in the 9 months till September widens to 1.14 trillion pesos despite attempts to control spending. And we'll take the short break. And when we come back on the exchange, where your business is our business, more promising results from experimental drug regimens in hospitals. But can our kababayans afford them? We'll break down the cost of COVID treatments. And this popular beach destination is hoping for a big tourism comeback. Keep it right here on CNN Philippines. News you can use, news you can trust. Glad you're staying with us right here on the exchange, where your business is our business. I'm Rico Hizon. Despite the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, the British Chamber of Commerce said companies from the United Kingdom remain confident about doing business in the country. BCCP Executive Director Chris Nelson told me on the final word, the foreign investors are upbeat about the decrease in COVID-19 cases, easing of restrictions, and an increase in vaccination rates. Nelson adds, the government can further boost this confidence by passing key economic legislation.
The economic measures which are currently being debated, particularly the Retail Trade Act, Foreign Investment Act, Public Service Act, is very important. So overall, it's been challenging. We're pleased to say our members have stayed. What they're looking for, of course, is that the economy will continue to reopen, and also that those measures that I've referred to, starting with the Retail Trade Act, will be passed very shortly.
Well, Nelson says the chamber hopes these measures would be passed during the administration, which the president has certified as urgent, and that the next leadership would continue to liberalize the economy and promote data transparency and the ease of doing business. Well, the race to find the cure for COVID-19 is still on. Experts across the world are working closely together to look for effective drug regimens and save more lives. Let's now have an exchange with Dr. Benjamin Capomanes of the St. Luke's Medical Center. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us on the exchange. St. Luke's has introduced this monoclonal antibody therapy to help those with mild to moderate COVID symptoms. How does it work, Doc?
Hi, Rico. Let me start it off by explaining briefly what antibodies are. There are two types of vaccines. The active type of vaccine, which is the one that is given to us. When it is given to you, it induces or lets the body make the antibodies. The other type of vaccine is the passive type of vaccine, wherein you don't make the antibodies. We make it outside of your body and directly inject it to you. So it's like an immediate antibodies. And these are the monoclonal antibodies. So there's no waiting time. Unlike the passive type of vaccine that is given to us, which will take weeks before you make the antibodies, this is immediate antibodies given to the person who has COVID. Now, what is the disadvantage? Why people will say, why were we not given all passive vaccines, just antibodies? Because the antibodies don't last very long in our bodies. It will just take a couple of weeks and it's not there anymore.
Mm-hmm. So how does this therapy work, doctor?
So it means what we have here is it's Regeneron, but it's called Ronapriv here in the Philippines. We inject the patients, mild to moderate patients, with the antibodies itself. So it means there's immediate antibodies. So that's how it works.
So, doctor, if you start to feel these COVID symptoms, when is the right period of time to get this monoclonal antibody therapy?
Actually, right away. We say that when you are diagnosed, because then one of the provisions for this inclusion will be you need to be positive for COVID. So you're tested for COVID, you're positive, you have mild symptoms, and you have a risk of developing a more serious disease, then we advise that you get your monoclonal antibodies.
And is this therapy both for the vaccinated and the unvaccinated, doctor?
Yes, they're both for vaccinated and unvaccinated. But of course, if you are unvaccinated, then you have more of an advantage because you don't have antibodies itself. But if you are vaccinated, we also give you extra antibodies to fight against you progressing into a more serious disease.
And the big question now is, doctor, because this was only introduced in private hospitals just a couple of weeks ago, can ordinary Filipinos afford this treatment?
That's the problem, because they're very expensive treatment protocols. It may not be within reach of the ordinary citizen. That's why we are tapping some people in the foundation that if you are indigent patients, you can apply for funding for these monoclonal antibodies.
Okay, you have the monoclonal antibody therapy, and you also have this Molnupiravir, which will be imported in the hundreds of thousands in November. Is this pill a game changer in the fight against COVID-19?
It is. Molnupiravir is the oral form of monoclonal antibodies, and this is an oral form, so it's a lot cheaper than the IV infusion form that the Ronapriv is. The only difference is the effectivity. The IV infusion form, which is Ronapriv, the effectivity rate is about 70%. Versus the oral Molnupiravir is about 50%.
And doctor, briefly, before we let you go, are there other innovative treatments apart from monoclonal and Molnupiravir that the hospital is going to introduce going forward for COVID patients?
Well, I just like to cite that it was probably not mentioned by the secretary. DOST has actually approved our study for vaccine production in the Philippines. So I believe we are the only ones working on this. We're working on proof of concept of another form of vaccine, which we were given a grant by DOST. So we're looking forward to that one.
Thank you so much for this medical exchange, Dr. Benjamin Campomanes of the St. Luke's Medical Center. Well, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas is planning to use a different material in producing banknotes, which is stronger and more hygienic. It's made of polymer or plastic, similar to the money used in Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom. The central bank adds the shift from abaca-based paper bills will have a positive impact on the environment, as polymer bills are recyclable, 4 times more durable than the paper type, which usually disintegrates in 18 months. The BSP says this would be timely amid this health crisis.
As you know, we're trying to contain this COVID health crisis, so it would help us all if our currencies are safe to handle. Polymer banknotes can be sanitized without damaging the currency, the banknote, unlike paper banknotes. And it is very important, especially nowadays, right? And of course, in the future.
The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas is set to test polymer for a few million pesos of 1,000 peso bills by the first half of 2022. And still ahead on the exchange, where your business is our business. The so-called game changer pill against COVID-19 will soon be available in the country. We'll talk to the company that will import this drug and also make it accessible for our kababayans. And are you planning a quick getaway for the Undas weekend? Check out this beach and diving destination that's now welcoming travelers back. Keep it right here on CNN Philippines. News you can use, news you can trust. Welcome back to The Exchange, where your business is our business. I'm Rico Hizon. An upscale real estate developer is optimistic the real estate and tourism sectors will pick up as government gradually relaxes restrictions. On The Final Word, Landco President and CEO Erickson Manzano said Filipinos are now looking forward to engage in leisure and recreational activities such as traveling after more than a year of lockdowns.
You cannot bottle up that need for relaxation to take care of your mental health. So I believe once that the restrictions are kind of loosened, domestic tourism will shoot up. Yeah, admittedly, maybe international tourism might take a while, but domestic, right off the gate, I think it's going to shoot up.
Manzano also shared advice to business owners to do what it takes to survive during this pandemic and to remain optimistic that good times are ahead. A game-changing drug against COVID-19 will soon be available in the country. 31 hospitals and 5 drug companies got the green light to use and import Molnupiravir. 2 of them are joining us tonight, Mona Lisa Salian from MedEthics and Manny Hernandez from Jack Pharma. Thank you so much for joining us on The Exchange. Mona Lisa, let me start off with you. MedEthics is importing 300,000 of Molnupiravir for COVID-19 patients. The question now is, when will they be arriving in the country?
As promised by our supplier Aurobindo, it will arrive Philippines between mid or end of November.
Okay, that's very soon, no? In a couple of weeks' time. And of course, after the initial 300,000 doses, Mona Lisa, how many more will be imported by MedEthics going forward?
That actually boils down to the demand. Yeah, but then we have pending applications for CSP still, and whatever volume that is approved by FDA for those hospital grantees of CSP, we will import it to them and supply the same to them.
And many, Jack Pharma will be distributing the drug locally. Many people want to find out how much will each pill cost.
All right. So right now we're looking at about 150 pesos price to the patient. This is the kind of level that we're looking at as far as pricing is concerned per pill. Yeah.
And the price, which you just mentioned, is quite affordable for our kababayans. And research shows it's a 5-day treatment of about 40 capsules. So that will total more than 4,000 pesos. How will Jack Pharma distribute Molnupiravir?
Well, the way to go is basically, as Mona has initially mentioned, that it will have to be a compassionate special permit that is going to be issued by the particular hospitals. So the way the patients will be able to actually buy them are through the pharmacies of the hospitals. Of course, they do need to have a prescription for that one. So this will be the way to go as far as the distribution is concerned.
And Mona Lisa, Merck will also allow generic manufacturing of Molnupiravir. Does that apply in our country? And do you think it will be manufactured here in the Philippines?
If Merck allows or gives the permits as well to the local manufacturer, we may also explore the possibility of doing it here.
So if that's basically a yes, how soon do you think can we produce our own Molnupiravir that can be more affordable to our kababayans?
That will depend actually to the Merck side. Yeah, because we are yet to really explore on that. We heard and we read from their clippings or their publications that they were able to approve local manufacturers. But if it really happens, it's a good development for us because treatment will be nearer home. And we will, work on it.
And of course, And of course, Manny, we just heard from Dr. Campomanes of St. Luke's Medical Center, which is offering a monoclonal antibody therapy treatment that, Molnupiravir is definitely much cheaper than the antibody therapy. So eventually, will it be available over the counter to pharmacies and drugstores with a doctor's prescription?
Well, that's a great question. Right now, what we do have is basically the compassionate special permit.
Right.
So it's quite limited to the institutions to have them available. Eventually, when the emergency use authorization is available, then it could actually be available to a wider reach of customers where they could walk into the drugstores and have it available there.
And that will really be good news once it's available to many more of our kababayans. And Mona Lisa, are you looking to import other drugs that can potentially be a game-changing treatment like Molnupiravir going forward?
We are on the watch, actually, what is the best solution for this COVID. And we are in the fight as well. We kept our promise to deliver and make this COVID medicine available to our Filipinos. So we will keep on the conquest of the right medicine or any new innovative product to treat or to conquer COVID-19.
Thank you so much for this Molnupiravir exchange. Mona Lisa Salyan from MedEthics and Manny Hernandez from Jack Pharma. And before we go, it is the Undas weekend. For some, it is a good time to take a break, especially as more tourist spots reopen. And here's one. Puerto Galera, a popular beach and diving destination, which is only about 3 hours away from Metro Manila. Well, the island hopes to bounce back from lockdowns and recover tourism losses of around 2.5 billion pesos. Local officials say they can welcome around 6,000 visitors daily. And if you're planning for a quick beach getaway, this list may come in handy. If you're already fully immunized, you only need to show your vaccination card. Well, and this is the exchange that makes sense of the facts and the figures and the ups and downs of the business cycle, because your business is our business. I'm Rico Hizon. Thanks for watching CNN Philippines. News you can use, news you can trust.